Hello, everybody, and welcome to Music Industry Insights Worldwide, Volume 3. And today I have the amazing Jean-Michel with me. How are you, Jean?
Hi, good. I'm trying to fight this cold, but I'm good.
Oh, bless you. And thank you so much for taking the time to come and speak to me on the show today. Really appreciate your time.
I love it. It's been great meeting you in July, and I'm glad that we can have this talk and show that there's no Brexit among professionals.
Likewise, it's such a pleasure to meet you. And thanks again. Do you want to tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you do?
All right, my name is Jean-Michel Journet, and I work from France. I've been in the music industry for about 12 years now, including 8 years as an artist manager and publisher independently. What else can I tell you about me?
Great.
I created Music 2, France in 2020. That was I worked with Rose Lamy, who's an activist on social media, and we decided to create a page on Instagram to gather testimonials from people who had endured sexist and sexual violence in the music industry in France, and that that made quite a bit of noise in 2020 and 2021.
Yeah.
That
There was
was
a lot
fun.
going on around that, wasn't there? And I think we needed to shine a light on some of the issues that the industry faces. So thank you for doing that. And how long have you actually been in the music industry and entertainment industries for?
Since 2012. Actually, I worked in a big company called Teleperformance. I believe there's some in UK. Like they're all over the world. It's a marketing and telemarketing, and what I did was mostly technical support with them. And I stayed there for 10 years. Actually, let's go back to the very first thing. Is actually I wanted to work in the music industry when I was a kid,
Yeah.
and when I finished school when I was 21, and I actually had the opportunity to meet a dancer who was dancing for Janet Jackson and Ricky Martin.
Wow.
Um, and her boyfriend at the time was managing the Will Smith family.
Oh, yeah.
And so I went to meet him, and the idea was that he was trying to work with a British artist called Samantha Mumba.
I know
And
she's Irish, actually. Yeah. And
yeah,
yeah.
and so he was trying to import her to the US, as a growing, pop singer. And he said, if I manage to do that, I can put you on the green card for the whole team, and you come and you work with me in LA. And I was
Wow.
like, wow, this is really cool.
Gosh.
And so I took this job at Teleperformance in 2001,
Yeah.
expecting to be back in LA 3 months later. And I spent 10 years in that company, never went back to LA. I mean, I did, but not in these circumstances, and kind of forgot, everything about the music industry other than being in love with music and going to concerts all the time. And 10 years later, I meet this artist, this British artist called Alice Russell, who's a soul singer, who was one of my favorite artists. And I go home and I'm like, this is what I wanted to do 10 years ago. What the fuck am I doing here? Why am I still, answering to Korean clients who don't understand what it's like to be in Europe, and why we have different languages, and why we don't think like them? It was a crazy year,
Yeah.
2010. And so I'm like, well, Alice put me in touch with the people at her label who told me about a bit about the industry, and about this training that I could get from a French organization. And so I was like, okay, let's. I took a I took a lawyer to represent me with my job and to negotiate my leaving, because they actually wanted me to leave,
Okay.
which was perfect. And I started enrolling in this in this new training, and to have a new diploma on the subject of managing, being a manager in the
Music
the
industry.
music industry. And so that was 2011, 2012. And then I got my first internship, worked with Alice in France for the release of her latest album, which was called To Dust. And it was in, 2013, like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Then she had 2 kids and she's about to release a new album since that. So it's been like a hiatus for her.
Yeah.
And then went on to work in a record label as the only employee there, and I released about 11 albums within 2 years and a half.
Wow.
That wanted to be on my own, actually. One of the artists in the label was like, "Oh, I can't work with my manager anymore. Are you ready for it?" Because it was a running gag that I was the true manager and the other was just waiting for the money to drop, which in the first years is not the first thing that happens. And so I became her manager, left the label. I didn't know that my boss would leave the label as well, so she got she became label-less. So we had to like do her new album together as a self-production, so which was fine because it's exactly what I've been doing for two and a half years. So I was like, let's go, let's do this.
Yeah.
And so since that, I've managed about 6 or 7 artists so far in these past 8 years. And right now I'm managing an artist called YADAM, who's from Venezuela, lives in Paris.
Lovely.
And I just got back from Colombia and Madrid and Barcelona, where we had really, really cool shows. And he's going back to Venezuela actually for his very first show. That's going to be a big festival in December. So it's great.
Yeah, well done. And just touching on some of the stuff that we've already talked about, your musical education, when did you start that? And how old were you when you started your musical education?
I couldn't say I had a musical education. Like I've always loved music. I remember having, I don't know if you probably had that in England, in the UK. We had something called mange disque. It's like it literally eats the disc. So it's like, the 7-inch that goes into this box and plays the 7-inch. I don't know how you call that in English, if there's a special word, but it's like a tiny record player for kids.
Yeah, they're little mini ones, aren't they? I know which ones you're on about, but I haven't seen one of those for years, funnily enough.
Yeah. And so that's one of my first memories ever is being upstairs in the attic with a bowl of cherries and having 3 7-inches that I would play over and over again, B side, A side. That was one of my first memories, and one that I don't remember that, but my mom told me is that I wanted to be a drummer in the how do you call that? The people that walk the street and like bang.
Like a parade, in a parade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I saw this parade with the majorette. I don't know how you say it.
And they're playing the drums and playing the trumpets, and it's amazing.
And the girls, baton girls and everything.
Yeah.
And I told my mom I want that. And I was 3 years old. And so she bought me a tiny plastic one when I was a kid. And I was like, and apparently I threw a fit. And I was like, this is not the drum I wanted. It doesn't sound like it. And I banged on it and I showed it was plastic and I broke it. And that's literally my musical education. It stopped right there. Like I think my parents got scared of like pushing me towards a musical education because I was so, I don't know, that drum story kind of like tells everything. I was, I had expectations already back when I was 3, so I wanted it to sound good. And I know I do have an issue with learning. Like I don't want to learn. I want it to sound good. And I think I would really be frustrated if I had to learn an instrument or anything. Like it's really tough for me. So I do not have any musical background or knowledge on music, but I've studied. I've watched so many documentaries, listened to so many artists, and listened to lyrics, and that's actually how I got my English. It's really learning through the lyrics of Michael Jackson and Whitney Houston and Janet Jackson, like the soul and R&B of the 90s and watching Friends on TV and everything, but music really was my motivation to learn to speak English and to learn more of how do you make a good show, how do you make good music, what taps into your emotions. And I think as a queer kid, I think a lot of us, you know, recognize that it kind of saves your life at some point, you know, to look up to artists, to, you know, want to know what's the next album of your favorite artist. That kind of saved me at some point, because, you know, we all go through bullying and difficulties of you know, to accept yourself and identify yourself and know exactly what you fit in, why you don't fit in. You know, teenage years are really tough because everybody's pointing to you as a faggot, and you're like, I'm not.
Yeah.
No, like, and
Yeah.
people know before you do, I guess. But it's not really sensitive to tell that to someone, you know. It's and it's really harsh when you're like 14, 15, and all that was left for me is music. And that was my go-to. That was like, that's what I cry to, that's what I laugh to, that's what I dance to. That's and it really helped me throughout a lot of self-discovery, and, you know, even throughout higher education. When I was in university, I think my third year in university was a year that I finally got cable internet at home, and so I was connected with a lot of people in America,
Yeah.
because I was a big Janet Jackson fan,
Oh my.
and we had fan forums. Janet would drop by a lot, and that was kind of like the first time of having the sense of community of, you know, people who are fans, yes, but also talk to each other, have self-discovery experiences about, you know, love and attraction. And it was kind of a like, yeah, it was an experience. And it's something that definitely was hard on my studies because I did not get a lot of sleep. My mom was really worried about that. But at the same time, it totally saved me and helped me, you know, feel safer in my identity and where I talk from and what I want to do in life.
Yeah, I totally feel you on that actually. And that's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. That's so kind. Can I just ask you what kind of challenges and barriers, obviously being from the LGBT community and having to work in the industry, what kind of challenges and barriers have you had to face and overcome just to be where you are today? It's a hard one.
Okay, it's funny because in my previous job at Teleperformance, I never came out.
Okay.
Every time we had lunch with colleagues and it would come down to what did you do this weekend, I would kind of pass, and no one would really notice. You know, they would tell, you know, what they did with their spouse and with their kids, and I would never say anything, or I would not use the plural. You know, I would say I did this, even if I had been in a relationship for 5 years. But when I decided to be in the music industry, I was like, I'm not going to hide anything. I'm just going to be me, and you know, that's it. But I still found moments where I could retrieve to that, and I would have to, because I feel like I was not in a safe environment.
Okay.
Um, you know, there's a there's still a sort of masculinity in some aspects to the music industry that are, you know, detrimental to us, to women and LGBT community.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's and sometimes you're like, okay, so yeah, and that's also like, I don't want to say it's just the music industry, but also um, being in teleperformance before, I had a lot of rules in terms of, you know, law and work laws.
Yeah.
And when you get to the music industry, you're like, okay, so before coming into the music industry, if I worked after 10, I would get extra pay. If I work on the weekend, I would get extra pay. There was no alcohol where I had to, you know, on your workplace. And now I'm in the music industry, and basically half of the time is spent in concerts after 10 drinking
Yeah.
at the bar of the venue with people who are colleagues slash friends slash, and it's so blurry that the relationships. I'm not saying that I like hierarchy. I don't know.
Yeah, that's correct.
It's not my favorite thing, but there's some rules. People you work with are not necessarily your friends, and in France we have la bise, that you have to kiss people, even guys. And I was like, okay, this is brand new to me. I have to kiss every guy that I saw once before in my life, and I found this kind of detrimental to the workplace to have so many blurry and gray zones where you have to drink, but you're also representing yourself as a professional and representing artists, and so it to come back to your question, the difficulty was to actually adhere to these performances of virility and of how you have to drink to be a man, you have to throw up to show that you're a part of the crew. And I never really did that because I had that training within teleperformance, and that alcohol in the workplace do really terrible things, and that's not how I want to represent myself. And I also remember one of the first shows that I did with Alice Russell in France was at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and her booking agent came in already drunk at the festival. I'm like, this is not how you should represent the artist. You're the booking agent. You're representing the artist. Yeah. And I told myself, I'm never going to be that. I'm happy getting drunk with friends, but I'm never going to represent an artist in a professional place,
right?
Where I get shit faced, and and at the same time, it's crazy because that's what some people expect of you, to be part of the gang, to be part of the crew, to do alcohol, maybe to do drugs. It's funny because I was never offered drugs in these past 12 years. I know there's drugs in the music industry, but I was never offered. It's probably because I have like blonde with blue eyes and glasses, and I look like a nerdy guy, but I never was offered any. But I do have these stories of, you have to be like part of the gang and part of the crew, and everything is very much a network. And if you want to get this job as an A&R or get this other job, it's good to be in the crew. It's good to be known, and to party with people. And I never wanted to do that, so I'm still independent.
That's really interesting you say that as well, because I can really relate to that. And I think it's about separating business from pleasure. But in the music industry, it's like your business is also your pleasure, because a lot of the time you're networking and you're kind of working in these late hours and sometimes early mornings as well. So you're doing really long days. You're not eating much, and then you start having a drink and it can catch up on you, especially when you've had a long day. And I think sometimes it is about ensuring that people are kept safe, but also that people can control themselves in a way that, okay, there is drink here, but I'm also representing myself, I'm representing organizations, and I need to be professional. So yeah, I get you where you're saying about these blurred lines. And has that kind of affected your kind of ability to get opportunities and to be respected, do you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I'm fine with that. You know what? If it's costing me something, like in what we did with Music 2 about, sexual violence in the music industry, cost me quite a few things as well. But, when I left Teleperformance, I was like, okay, I'm going to work in the music industry, and I'm not going to make any more concessions about what I want to do, who I want to be, and I'm not going to excuse myself for being this or that, which is often quite tough. But I can't regret being who I am and having a mind of my own. And I wouldn't want to. I didn't really push myself to try to, get into those gangs. I just really early on understood how toxic it could be. And also because I was 33 when I got into the music industry. I was not, a kid of 22, 23, just after studies and discovering what, the work.
He was disciplined already.
exactly. Like I had these bases, these really stable grounds
Yeah.
that make it so that, you know, I didn't grow up like this. I already had
Yeah.
grown a little bit,
Yeah.
and then I saw the wind was blowing a different way, and I was like, no, no,
I
I'm
understand.
okay. Keep blowing that wind, but
Yeah.
I'm good
Yeah.
growing that direction. So I know it's more painful and more difficult for people who, you know, are in their 20s and discovering the music industry as they've never discovered any other work environment. And they
Yes.
think that is a work environment, which is not. You know, anytime someone's going to talk to you about a family, then you should just run. Anytime someone's going to tell you this is how you're going to be successful, you should run as well, because no one has any
Yes.
rules or you know.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things to say about this industry, and the thing is that a lot of people don't know, and that's what this industry strives on. People who don't know, who are naive. Like
So
if the pop stars are 16 or 17, that's also because, you know, they're easy to take into abuse. So the ones that really get out of that are really lucky, or have a good lawyer or good parents that really look out for them, or good managers. That happens. But yeah, it's definitely an industry that, you know, strives on profiting from young people, be it artists or professionals that will, you know, put in those long hours and stay really late, and
well,
close their eyes on abuse and on abuse of substances, and not being respected in the workplace because they're young and they want to make it in this industry.
mm,
And I had that same drive coming into the music industry because that was my childhood dream.
yeah.
But there's some things I was not ready to compromise for, and I know it did. I can say it hurt my career because that's what it is, but I know that some doors didn't open for me, and honestly, it's okay. Did I really want to work with someone who told me I could not understand women because I'm gay?
No,
No.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely
in
not.
the end, it's not so bad.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. There's always a silver lining in every cloud, right? And that's the thing you've got to remember. And I think I've been through situations where it didn't always work out, or I didn't feel comfortable. And I think sometimes it's about going with your gut feeling and saying, is this within my morals? Is this within my values? If it's not, then I don't want to be part of that. And I
Right.
think that's what you're saying as well, is having that moral compass to say, you know what's right and you know what's wrong. And this isn't acceptable. And I can't allow that. And I don't want to see that. So I'm just going to take myself away from it. And I would say also, as well, as if people are seeing these issues happening of sexual abuse or violence, whatever, please speak up and say, because it helps everybody. You know, we need a safer environment. We need an environment that's inclusive, diverse, but also safe. And people need to feel safe, whoever they
Yeah,
are, wherever they're from. It's a necessity for everybody, isn't it?
absolutely. Absolutely. And to come back to that idea of the gut feeling, I think it's super important. You have to develop that gut feeling. I remember a few years back, working with YADAM. We decided to work with someone that I was like, I don't like this person.
Mhm.
I don't think she's amazing, but like she seems to be opinionated and obstinate enough to maybe talk about the product to other people.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, maybe we should try this. And in the end, it didn't really work out. You
Yeah.
know, it's
With trust your
gut feeling was there, and I went against the gut feeling, knowing that maybe her flaws would be qualities in the work that I was asking of her. But in the end, no, it did backfire, and it didn't work out. So
we've all
always
done.
trust the gut feeling.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk also, you said mixing business with pleasure.
Mm.
Um, I've noticed how much pleasure I've lost
Same,
being in the music industry,
same, actually.
because when you turn into this professional in the music industry, you don't see a show the same way. You have a, you know, more critique and more, you know, when I go see some amazing artists that I like, I'm going to focus on the sound. I'm going to be like, why is the sound engineer is not doing this? Why is the artist saying this? why is the set list in this order, what's happening on stage, why, you know, and it's like, it kind of cuts you off the pleasure of discovering and just enjoying a show. So I've really turned more into theater, musical theater, and seeing other things than just music on stage, because otherwise there's no renewal of the creative part. You know, seeing a concert on stage is nothing, there's nothing more boring sometimes. Like, I would say 90% of the shows you're going to see, you know, you have the drummer on the back, you have the bass player and guitar player, and the singer in the center. There's
Exactly.
nothing particularly crazy with the lights or with the staging. And so
Mm,
I like to bring in more ideas from theater, musical theater,
mm,
and dance also. And I'm trying to find the pleasure again, and trying to completely disconnect from my work and going to see artists that I really, really love.
yeah.
Which is tough sometimes. I mean, I went to see a band that I love 5 days ago, and
Yeah.
the venue sounded like crap. And I was like, I'm not having fun. I want to go home.
And you see, you've got to switch off from the business and just be you sometimes. And I suppose you're always thinking in your business mind, okay, this could sound better, this could be better, they could do this. And I'm like that as
Exactly.
well, quite a lot. And I think when you're a creative and you're used to being in that environment, that's just the way your mind, that's the way your mind's trained to be, isn't it? And I think
Yeah.
trained
Yeah.
that way, you can't get it out.
But I
Yeah.
think it's important to find other creative forces and expressions that are going to get you back to you know, your emotions as well. Because I'm kind of robotic now. When I'm with my artist and they're doing an amazing show, I'm like, yeah, that was good. And then start with the criticism.
Yeah, but I think this is all about evolving and feedback, and nothing can ever be perfect. There's always room for an improvement, isn't there? And I think
Yeah,
the thing as well, like we're always evolving, we're always growing, we can always be better than what we are. And I think that's a really nice thing as well, that we're constantly growing. And I think it's just about going with that, but just making sure that we look after ourselves at the same time and have that.
absolutely. Yeah.
So what are your kind of thoughts and feelings on equality, diversity, inclusion at the moment in France in the music industry?
Woo.
Big question.
It is because I'm still failing to see initiatives. You know, a few months back, I was seeing a lot of posts on LinkedIn about, you know, the UK diversity and inclusion manager for Warner Music, or in the US for Sony Music and everything. And the majors here, they don't really have that. They don't have, you know, a diversity and inclusion and equality officer. We have HR, you know, um, um, directions, but there's no real incentive to do that. Ethnicity is a big subject in France as well, because we're not supposed to do, you know,
Yeah.
to get data and know exactly how many Black, Asians, or Arabic, or, you know, non-Caucasian people work in the music industry. So we have no clue.
I was shocked, and when I found that out, I did not know that until Strasbourg, actually.
Yeah. And so that's a subject that's starting to brew within the CNM, which is the Center for Music, National Center for Music in France. So they're starting to have this conversation, but I'm seeing a lot of initiatives for women,
Okay, yeah,
sometimes for women and
gender diversity.
non-binary people, and sometimes for gender diversity.
Yeah,
But these are like initiatives created in some way that are promoting women and helping them, you know, achieve a certain level of legitimacy, I would say. um, but it's still not, you know, equality and inclusion. It's still making a specific, you know, affirmative action for women, and be like, okay, we're good, we're good people, we're doing this for women. And I'm
yeah,
seeing also a lot of professionals right now, straight professionals, um, being like, oh, you have to hear my new queer project, I discovered them, they're amazing. And
found that.
a couple of weeks ago, I had 3 different, you know, straight professionals come to me like, you have to hear my new queer project. I'm like, oh, so we're bankable now?
This is what
And
uh,
how are these artists, helped through the industry other than, oh, you're bankable now, I'm going to make a great, deal of money out of you, and help you until I start understanding exactly what. I had one manager actually ask me what queer was, and he's managing a queer artist, and I was like, wow,
I'm shocked.
there's some work there. So I'm happy we're bankable now.
Yeah.
But
And the
what we,
trans community is the same, actually. It's become this thing now where people want to, it's kind of like, okay, we've been suppressed for so many years. Now all of a sudden we're starting to get a glimmer of hope. Everyone wants to be part of this community that wasn't necessarily part of it. Totally understand.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's great, take all the spots and take all the money you can, but then do create, that's what I would say, create an environment where you're really understood and
Build
and
legacy
you're
as well.
really supported. Because sometimes I feel like, being an opportunity is not finding an opportunity. You're not the opportunity of someone else. You're your own opportunity, and you have to surround yourself with people who are going to really understand you. And being a gay manager with a gay artist, um, we thought at some points we found, some good partners, and
Yeah.
these partners could still come up with, fat phobic or homophobic comments that sound like, oh, it's okay, but
Not a,
then it's not,
not,
it sounds like just a patronizing way to say, oh, dress better.
yeah.
No, it's still kind of like a certain
Judgment.
type of violence against the artist, and you have to be surrounded with people who are going to understand that violence that we face every day. And if you're not, then you're just a product like any other. And yeah, I mean, some artists are really happy with being a product and going with the flow and going with whoever gives you more money. I'm absolutely not judging that, especially in this day and age. You have to go where the opportunities are, but
Yeah.
don't be the opportunity for someone else just because of your identity, I think.
Great gem. That's a great piece of advice there, Jean-Michel. Thank you. Before, because time's running out now, that's gone so fast already, but we've got another 5 minutes. If anyone else wants to find out more about the work you're doing, they want to connect with you, is there anywhere they can connect with you or any links or anything you have to share with us?
Sure. I'm on Instagram, JM_Journet, JOURNET. I'm on LinkedIn as well. That's pretty easy. And there's a link tree as well. So it's super easy to find me. I have 4 names.
Okay.
Jean-Michel Aubry Journet. It's pretty easy to find me.
Leave them all in the description below. So if anyone else wants to contact you, feel free to contact Jean-Michel directly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you. Have you got any major successes and wins up to date that you'd like to share with the audience before we go?
As I was saying, I'm hard at being enthusiastic about the past, and I'm more eager about the future. So I've probably had some great moments. Definitely working on this project for Music 2, and getting 300 testimonials and working with journalists and making this subject, this Me Too in the music industry subject, pop up in French media was definitely a great thing for me, even though, at the time we were mostly anonymous.
Yeah.
So it's not like I became a big star because of that. And it's fine. It's all about, the purpose and why we do this. And we're doing this for the victims. And I know this is still a subject for the industry. And on a more personal level, yeah, I think I've grown so much from the guy who really wanted to work with Alice Russell 10 years ago. And, I haven't made it. I wouldn't say I haven't made it in this industry because I'm still here, but I'm still struggling like a lot of us, financially and in terms of networks and in terms of, gratitude and reciprocity and everything.
Yeah. Oh, I'm there.
But um, I think my greatest achievement is always to have respected the artists that I've worked with. I've it's really important for me, and working with YADAM for the past 6 years now, and seeing him grow from the kid he was 19 when I met him. He hadn't written a song, and now we just released his first album, and He's a very prolific artist, a very respectful artist. He knows what he wants, and I've given him, you know, this opportunity to be himself and to express himself as much as possible, despite anything that any partner could say. You know, I was like, okay, this is your career, you're driving it. Just what do you want to say? Who do you want to talk to? And we don't care about the rest, you know. And
Lovely.
it's definitely like seeing people grow and helping them grow into the artist that they're going to be is definitely something that I've been super proud of. Yeah.
Well done. And thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me. It's great catching up and seeing how much you're doing on that side of
Thank you.
the sea. It definitely we have so much to work on in this French music industry, and so I hope like a lot of people get inspired by what you guys are doing, and you know, hopefully there can be like a big European meeting of all of us, about, you know, I was saying like we met at this conference about gender equality, but I think it's a power struggle, it's a power imbalance that we have to face, and it's not just men and women, it's also like every part of the society and every part of, you know, what we're supposed to be as a music industry that makes people dream the future. And if we can't make people dream of the future is if our industry is not, you know, representing of everyone there.
That's great. Thank you so much. Thank you again.
You're welcome. Thanks. Talk to you soon.
Yes. Bye. Where's this one going now? Oh, gotta find the it does this. Yeah, it's on me sometimes. Here we go.